Let's move over to the welterweight division now, where we got Sean Brady coming in at minus 160. He goes up against Joaquin Buckley, who comes in at plus 140. Now, Brady suffered his second pro loss last time around, which snapped his 3-fight losing streak when he went up against Michael Morales. Now, you could absolutely make a case that Brady probably should have been fighting for the title. Instead, Islam Makhachev moved up to welterweight, challenged Jack Della Maddalena, and that's what caused the hiccup there. But after the way that Sean Brady dominated and finished Leon Edwards, you had to have given him a title shot. But just so much fuckery with the whole Islam Makhachev for Sean Brady to go out there and prove himself once again against a very dangerous Michael Morales, and he paid for it. Right? I saw an interview earlier this week that Brady said that there was some stuff going on behind the scenes that kind of, fucked with his mentality a bit. And again, I don't like to read too much into that stuff. I feel as though fighters often say that when they ended up losing, but then they don't bring it up when they end up winning. So I'm kind of just going to not pay too much attention to that. But it was one of those fights where even if Brady got to his grappling, he was going to struggle a little bit to deal with Morales, who has a bit of a wrestling base as well. But the athleticism of Morales, the power that Morales throws with, I believe I even picked Morales to win that fight, and he ended up getting the first round knockout there. That's not to say that Brady's not good. I think Brady is a guy that should be entrenched in title talks. His grappling is very hard to deal with for a lot of people. The way that he dealt with and submitted Kelvin Gastelum, the way that he went out there and just absolutely mollywopped Gilbert Burns, the way that he ran through Leon Edwards without any resistance in that fight, just goes to show how good he is. The Bilal Muhammad loss, people want to rag on him for that, but Bilal had the perfect style to deal with Brady. Bilal was a good enough wrestler, as we obviously know. He was a better striker, had enough of a pace, and that was enough to really work Brady down and eventually get that third round finish for Muhammad. So I think Brady is getting a lot of flack for fights that stylistically probably weren't great matchups for him. Excuse me. He's a guy that once he's able to get a hold of you, he's kind of short for the division, 5'10", 72-inch reach, but he's built like a brick shithouse. This guy goes out there, and as soon as he gets a hold of you, he can go out there and just maul you on the mat, get submissions. His guillotine is nasty. Just look at the goddamn tattoo on his stomach there, right? It's a tattoo of a guy choking out a tiger. That's just his game, right? He's just so nasty with his BJJ. And once he gets a hold of you, you're probably not getting away from him either. His striking is obviously a big work in progress, but once he gets a hold of you, similar to Pat Sabatini, he's going to be able to maul a lot of his opponents. Now, he's going up against Joaquin Buckley this weekend, who's coming off of a decision loss to Kamaru Usman. Now, that's his first loss down at welterweight since jumping to that division. Obviously, it was the division he should have been at this entire time. He's undersized for middleweight. Once he got to welterweight, we saw the type of success he could have, right? The way that he knocked out Stephen Thompson in a somewhat competitive fight, the way he worked Colby Covington down and eventually got that late finish there, even utilizing his wrestling in the Nursultan Ruziboyev fight. It was very impressive from what we saw from Buckley. And I thought we saw what his peak could be. But then I thought we saw his ceiling against Kamaru Usman. Usman, who a lot of people thought was kind of old and kind of just worn out by that point. Usman did a great job in terms of implementing the game that has made him so good. Heavy wrestling, heavy top control, and Buckley had no answer for it outside of round 5, which by then was just too little too late for him to have any success. Buckley has power, for sure, but I don't think it's dangerous power. He leapt into that crazy shot he had against Stephen Thompson to get that finish there in a fight that was very competitive. The Colby Covington fight, I believe it came from a doctor stoppage, but he was wailing on Covington, but it wasn't one of those where he just one shot knocked him out. He's a solid fighter, has developed a lot throughout his UFC career, but I think people, and I got sucked into it a little bit when he went up against Kamaru Usman as a minus 250 favorite. I don't think I bet him that night, but I still was a little bit surprised that, Usman was able to pull off the upset there. I'm a big Usman believer, and I'm still kicking myself that I didn't end up taking the shot there. Now, in this matchup against Brady, I saw this at minus 180 when I studied it last week. I saw him dip down to minus 145 earlier today. Now he's back up to that minus 160 range. I believe people are just giving Brady too much flack for that knockout loss to Morales. I believe Morales is much more dangerous than Buckley. I don't think Brady has much of a wrestling game to worry about in return from Buckley. And sure, Buckley, if he lands that big shot, he could really cause Brady some problems. But I think Morales is a much more dangerous knockout specialist than Buckley. And I think it'll be easier for Brady to navigate the distance here compared to what he had to against Morales. In terms of metrics here, they're the same height, but Buckley does have a 4-inch reach advantage. But I don't think it's significant enough to really cause Brady issues here. I'm sure Buckley will be, threatening with uppercuts, threatening with knees to try to keep Brady off of a takedown. But I think Brady will get to positions where he can get that body lock, eventually get the back of Buckley, and then really find dominant positions. And I think he can even get a submission here. So I think we see the return of a dominant Brady here. And I think he reminds everybody why he is so dangerous and why he was so highly thought of, even so much to be a favorite in that fight against Michael Morales, why he was a big favorite against Belal Muhammad as well. He's very dangerous, and he's still close enough to his prime to go out there and showcase why. So I really like Brady in this spot. I think so much so that he actually ends up submitting Buckley here, and I think we get a dominant performance from Brady, and I think he wins by submission.